Hi, Vangile. Welcome to the Women Awaken podcast.
Hi, Whitney. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I appreciate it.
Yes, I have been looking forward to having you on the show since we connected back in September. And I was on the road and we had a phone call and I heard about your fabulous life. And I was traveling, but I heard about your extensive travel and basically the life you've made out of traveling and seeing the entire world, while at the same time being an author, a speaker, the founder of Wealthy Money, a wealth coach, a podcast host of the Property Magicians podcast, basically just a really awesome person. And I felt very attuned with you because you're focused on a lot of the offerings and things that I am focused on, which is to helping people get more stability, balance, and sort of trust and faith in themselves, but also getting around the world and seeing some different places. Right?
Oh, yeah, I know. And when we connected, I was in Mexico. I'm now in Costa Rica. And I was in the process of planning a retreat and also writing my draft for my next book. It was such a chaotic time.
Wow. So you're writing a new book?
Yes, I sent the draft. I'm 3/4 of the way in with the to the publishers, and they've had like the inserts and stuff, but I've finished the last remaining quarter of the book. But like I'm already like 40 something thousand words in, and I guess I just went through I am exhausted, give it a break in September. And I haven't even looked at the books the whole time that I've been here in Costa Rica. So I arrived here on the 20th of September. And as we're recording this, it's like the 19th of October. I haven't looked at that book, haven't looked at a single chapter. I just want to give myself another break until the end of October, then I'll get back to writing.
Yeah. Oh, girl, I say it all the time. I don't know how people write books. In 2021, I was like, I'm going to write a book this year. And for about 6 months, I wrote every day. And then I was like, I am not ready for this. And I put it down and I haven't looked at it since. It's hard. It's overwhelming. And it takes a lot of, creative energy. They call it writer's block because you have that flow, but then all of a sudden you're like, I got nothing.
Yeah. One of the things that I've learned, I felt like I would get to a block if I didn't take a break. I think I had to trust what my body was saying and what my mind was saying, which is you're tired, you need a break, you need to rest, and you don't have to push it. And I just had to trust that somehow within all this, I'll make the publisher sort of deadline, because they haven't really said there's a deadline, but they've been like, it would be nice if you could tell us when you'll be done, and if you could be done by so that we could maybe plan a launch for the first quarter of 2023, and just trusting that okay, if it's done, it's done. If it's not, it's not. But yeah, just working with that. And I'm really glad, because randomly I was writing a magazine article, because I also write for magazines and stuff. So I was writing a magazine article about 2 days ago, and there was this research. I wanted to cite particular research around trauma and inherited trauma. And I couldn't find the author. I couldn't find the book. As I was writing the book for months and months, I kept researching. And then 2 days ago, I'm randomly writing this article, and something's like, just search this phrase. I got led to the actual book, the author, just like a gold mine of things that I wanted to cite in the book. And I'm like, I can't believe this. I spent months searching every single possible thing. And then I searched the most random thing and it comes up.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, okay. So you say that you had this out of nowhere, but I would call that like a bit of a divine hit where we get that sort of guidance from our, intuitive or, whatever system you want to call it, that sort of gives us that little breadcrumb or hint that leads us towards what we're looking for, but can't quite find.
Amen.
And,
Yes.
and what a great thing. And we were just talking about, I was asking how you got to Costa Rica, because as you said, you're in Costa Rica, which I feel like I can see it in the background and it looks lush and gorgeous, as I've heard.
I live in a jungle, and okay, so it's just this little house and it's in the jungle. So beautiful. I'm sure you can see there's like windows. I'm out on the balcony at the moment.
Yeah.
And every morning there's just like howler monkeys that just like make a noise, wake us up. And I'm sure they're waking everybody up. And you just see monkeys. Like I'll be sitting out here and there'll be a monkey. There's hummingbirds that come up to me in the middle of the day. Like the first time that happened, I was like, what is happening? And the hummingbirds were coming like right up to my face. It's insane.
Wow.
It's magical.
That is, oh my gosh, that sounds incredible. And it echoes everything I've heard about living in Costa Rica. Because I was also telling you that I have about 5 people right now, 2 who are currently in Costa Rica. One actually, the lovely Kate Alexandra, who I interviewed on my podcast 2 weeks ago. She was in Costa Rica while I was interviewing her. And then another good friend of mine who was on the podcast in the past, her name is Mia Yakel. She's living there now. She's been there for like 6 months, and she sees sloths on, like on a regular basis. She lives in the jungle right by the beach. It just seems incredible. But what I was asking you is how you ended up there, because both those ladies and other people who are, I know a lot of people going to Costa Rica early next year, they all felt this draw. There was something about Costa Rica right now that feels very rich, or something is, an offering is there. Something about the potency of the energy in Costa Rica seems very strong. And I'm actually planning to go next May because I feel it too. So I'm coming.
This is so incredible. Cause like, honestly, I've been like a little like, Costa Rica, why am I even going? Like this was me before I even arrived in Costa Rica, right? Like I've just been like that. I've just been like, why am I here? Why am I even going? Why am I even going to Costa Rica? I should have been going somewhere else. Like I just, in my head. But like I was telling you, when you're asking before the podcast, did I feel drawn to this? I was like, no. But I feel like I was divinely guided to Costa Rica, because I feel like if I wasn't in Costa Rica at this time, I don't know what would be happening. So much happened since we last spoke that I needed a place that could just center me and hold me. And I could not have planned this, like honestly, in my own human way. But Costa Rica has been the perfect place for my healing, the perfect everything. It's just been incredible being here. So I feel like, maybe I didn't want to come, but I was divinely guided. And now that I'm here, like, I've been like, oh yeah, like I can see how I can keep coming back here. There's something very peaceful about this place. There's something that draws you to take a break, to just rest. Like, I feel like I've been good with rest in my life, and I talk a lot about that, but I feel like being here has asked me to go even deeper in rest, to really, really sink into rest, to trust the process of resting, and to know that I will be fine the more that I rest. It's actually so intriguing, and it's just got that energy. And so I feel like we're all being drawn here because we've experienced so much the last few years, and probably like we still live in the culture of go, go, go. Costa Rica doesn't really support that hustle culture at all. I promise you, when like in Puerto Viejo, literally the energy gets you to just rest and go within and chill. Like I've done so much journaling out here. I've been doing so much more inner work than I've done in a long time. So much meditation. The land is just that. And also it's nature. Like you're surrounded by trees. Like I keep thinking like, where it's not very often where you get to live in a jungle and like the monkeys, like I'm like literally on any day, every day, I'm just like, oh, there's a monkey and I'm sitting on the porch and I'm just drinking tea or something and I'm watching that, it's amazing.
Wow. I love, it's so nice to hear that you're able to trust, going to a place and being in a time where it's more about rejuvenating and healing and just being in an environment that just, you don't have to do anything, just being in that space is healing. And it has, special properties that no other place does. And I feel, like that really ties into your lifestyle in general, because what I was so connected with you about is that you've been traveling for years. Is it 15 years now? You've lived as a traveler. And it sounds like you've pretty much gone wherever you felt was the place for you at that time. And that takes so much trust and faith that, it's okay to have sort of an alternative lifestyle, not have like a standard life that we're all told we're supposed to have, where we, have a home and we stay there and we, build our roots, which roots are important. Yet there's also something to say for, you can be somewhere for a certain amount of time and still have that energizing root system, but then be able to uproot and move on when the time is right.
I love that. So actually there was a time in between 2012 and 2014 where it just felt too much for me. At the beginning of 2012, I moved back to South Africa and I bought property. I had to pay off my $60,000 in debt, all that. And that's how I started on my journey in entrepreneurship. Well, not started, that's a lie. I've been an entrepreneur all my life, but that's where I started on my journey on like becoming a cash entrepreneur with no credit, nothing, right? No credit cards or anything. But why I moved back home was because I was no longer willing to trust that, because of what you've just said, that like you're constantly moving, you're creating a life, then you're meeting people, you're connecting with other humans so deeply, then you leave them, then you go and you create another life and you're leaving. And it just felt so heartbreaking. And I could no longer do that at some point. And I thought like, no, this is wrong. I don't want to do that. Like, I want to settle down. I want to do all the stuff. And that just wasn't my path. I later learned, like I tried it, but it just didn't work out for me in the way that I thought. Like, I remember I went home, paid off my debt, then I started saving, then I got property. I was like, this is amazing. I'm going to go straight into property now. I've like got myself in order. And like mid 2014, I started crying. So just to give you an idea, I bought a property on the beach in Cape Town, my favorite city, still my favorite city. Wake up, I'd watch there'd be the Helderberg Mountains in the background. So I had 360 views, which is insane. Like I'd have mountain views on one side. My property also has a sea view on the other because I'm renting it out now. And I was like, this is perfect. This is what I've always wanted. And just like a month later, I find myself crying. And at the time I had a part-time job. I'd go to work and I'd find myself crying at my desk. And all I wanted was crazy. I wanted to wake up and see the ocean, but in the Caribbean. I wanted to be in Tobago drinking coconut water. And like literally 4 months later, I was on a flight to Trinidad and Tobago, and the rest was history. And what that taught me was I would try to come back to my old life, in Cape Town, because now I had this property and I crafted a life and I promised myself I was going to settle down. And every time I'd come back, I'd feel like I'm living someone else's life. This is not my true life. So I was like, am I truly going back to traveling? And then one day I went to, so I just kept going, like I would do this chaotic travel where I'd go away for 2 months and I'd come back for a month because I felt like I owed it to this life to settle down. Then I'd go back and I'd come back. And then one day I went to the UK, came back from the UK, and I just packed up my whole life. I didn't even know what I was doing. I just put my apartment up for rent. I'd been there, I'd been back for like a week. And then I just like packed up my entire life, put it in storage, and just bought a ticket to India. And I was so like in my head, no, it's only temporary. I'm gonna come back. And then I think a few months in India, I was like to the tenant, let's just sign a long-term lease, not a month to month. I'm good. This is not working for me. Whatever I'm going through, it's not temporary, it's permanent. And that's how I went back to traveling. And I think one of the things that I had to accept was maybe my lesson in this lifetime was to learn not to hold on to people and things, and that was okay.
That is a hard lesson to learn. And I think that that's, there's that quote, I think it's a Buddhist quote that says all suffering is due to attachments, something to that degree, right? And it is a phenomenon that all of us as humans experience, where we've attached to things. We say, I need this, and I can't let go of this. But the essence of life is freedom. Some people say that the word life, love, God, freedom is all the same thing. So when we try to not be free, we're denying life, because life is free. It's meant to be fully expressed. But when we try to say, no, I need to hold on to this person, this place, which all of us do, it's keeping us from being free. And it's scary to let go. But when you do, you realize just as you're living, that you can fly right on from one thing to the next, and you can say bye to people because you meet new souls and new experiences that are just as enriching and just as important. And that we will have new loves and new experiences. But it's that attachment that we get to things, rightfully so, because we love things, we are attached to places. But when we get, I just think when we get too attached, it really limits our true freedom and expression.
You just said a word there. You said a whole sermon.
Thank you. But yeah,
Thank you.
That's why I appreciate, the sort of the guide you are to other people, that this life is possible, that it's possible to be able to go where you feel drawn or called, and to let go of something, even if it's good. Right.
I think that has been one of the biggest lessons in my life, right? Is that I do not have to hold on to things, that it's okay to let go. That everyone always laughs when I do a live video, because in every live video that I do in my business, when I do my Facebook lives, I'm like, I am settling down here, I'm never leaving. And I was like, I think Mexico is a place for me. And when I was doing a live video in Mexico, and someone said a few months ago on the live, Van, you said that about Thailand, you said that about Sri Lanka, you said that about Cambodia. And I'm just like, and I'm learning to accept that it's okay. It's okay that I feel like every place is home. And it's also okay to make decisions that come from a space of, I don't want to leave, but my spirit is telling me that it's time to move on. I don't have to. I used to feel like I needed a tangible reason. I don't like this country, I need to go see the next country, all that. I just accepted that it's reason enough to say I'm being guided to leave now. That like my time is up in this country and I'm being guided to bid it farewell. And that it's hard to leave because there's no real, I'm not upset. And it's also taught me that like you get to leave places even if there's nothing wrong. You get to say, the business model is not working for me, the job is not working for me, the relation, not that sorry, I want to backtrack with that. Not that it's not working for me, but that I am enough with this job. I love it. It is beautiful, but I think I want to change. Or I'm enough with this business model or this particular business. I think I want to fold it or take a break from it. I want to change. Oh, this relationship is so fulfilling, but I think I may want to break, or I may want it to evolve into something else. We don't have to, I think I used to wait until things are like completely falling apart before I allowed myself to just move on from things. And I think that's one of the hardest, again, it's been a hard lesson, because if things are good, you're told, suck it up, you like suck all the nectar from it, you know, and enjoy it. And I'm like, I love, like, there's so many places that I've left before I was ready, but because my guidance system has told me, move to the next place, you know?
Yeah. Well, again, I love so much that you share that you're embracing and accepting this, because it is sort of against the grain to constantly be moving on and traveling. And, you know, to say like, okay, I'm in Mexico, this is it. And then you're like, wait a minute, no, it's not. And I don't know about you, but I've been like that my whole life, where like I moved from jobs pretty quickly. I would move from different places. And I've had people tell me like, what are you running from? Where are you going? And I'd say, you know, I hear that. I get that sometimes people keep moving because they don't want to stop too long. Because if you stop, you do have to kind of sit and feel. But I don't think it's mutually exclusive, that if you're traveling, you're running, or if you're staying somewhere put, you're actually grounding. You can be avoidant being in the same place for 20 years. You can, and you can be totally present within each place you go if you travel to a different place for 15 years. And I think that, again, the messaging is that, oh, people who are sort of gypsies and vagabonds, they're just, you know, wanderlust and don't want to commit or this or that. But I think that it's just a different sort of lifestyle and personality people have, where they are just drawn to that and they thrive in that. And that's okay. You know?
I love that. I love that. Because just like you, I felt it. I felt like, you need to settle down. You need to be a particular way when you're adulting, you know? And I used to think that, like, I am searching. This is why I'm traveling, you know, that this is why I'm constantly moving. I'm searching for something. I think what I realized when I had that experience in 2014 was that I'm not searching for anything. Maybe this is who I am. This is what my soul desires.
Yeah.
And that is okay. You know, it's like that. I think it's Mark Twain that said, not all who wander are lost, you know? And I keep coming back to that. That, like, you don't have to be searching for anything to be traveling. It's just, this is what sets my soul on fire. For other people, stability sets their soul on fire. Being in the same place sets their soul on fire. There's nothing wrong. You know, it's just, this is what my soul desires, and this is what sets my soul on fire.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, I think that it's really powerful when you're able to own and honor yourself just as you are. And just, and be, just so you said, I think that this is just how I thrive and what I'm meant for. And, you know, to be able to, you know, again, to honor that and not try and fight it just because it's not always, you know, seen as the standard or the norm. And I think that's especially important now, because I would venture to say, I know a lot of people at this time who are living a lifestyle like you and I, more of like a vagabond, traveler, journeyer. And I think it has to do with those of us, I mean, from a spiritual perspective, I think there are those of us on this planet right now who are really, you know, going through a lot of evolution in this lifetime. There's a lot to learn from this time on this planet where there's so much chaos, and we're here. There's many of us who are here to help heal. And in order to heal, we have to be at our, you know, most finely tuned. And sometimes that happens by being in Costa Rica for 2 weeks and then going to Mexico for 4 months. And because different regions of the earth have different healing properties, have different essences, have different, you know, energies that really are come into you when you're there, and it helps you get exactly what you need at that time. So I think that, and if you have the ability to honor that, because I mean, it is a gift, right? Not everyone can just go around the world, they have to be in a certain place for their job, for their family.
Yeah.
But those of us who find ourselves in a position to be able to do so, it can be just incredible, but it can be kind of challenging to embrace it and say, because I know I've questioned it about myself. Like, am I just trying to like avoid
Definitely.
something? But I'm more and more, I'm realizing, you know what, this is my own journey, and I honor and respect everyone else's journey.
Yes.
But I'm going to, be okay with how mine looks.
Yeah. And also, I think that like throughout time, so I've had time to really sit and explore this. I'm like, because so many people have questioned, what is it that you're constantly moving from? What are you running from? What are you, and it's like, there's no running, because it's not like I'm seeking. Like I feel like even when I arrive in a place, right? Like I was saying to you before the podcast that I had to accept, like I was like, oh, Costa Rica, the vibe is you sit on the beach, you chill and you rest. This is it. So I feel like if you're a seeker, then you're like going out there searching. But I'm like, what I've learned is I work with the energy of the land. And one of the things that I started to look at is throughout time, there have been nomadic tribes since the dawn of humanity. You've got the Berber tribes, you've got all sorts of tribes in Africa that are nomadic, you've got the Gypsies, you've got different tribes in North America, South America that have just been moving. There have been these people that are constantly nomadic throughout time, and they've just never had where they've made a home where they move from place to place, and you even within the animal kingdom, you've got the birds that are constantly migrating, and then you've got animals that are, this is where I live, this is where I chill. So this is just different people that are here to see things, and different animals as well. So there's definitely nothing wrong with it. So I just realized that it's just that as humans, we tend to normalize things. There's a culture where there's a dominant culture that tends to then thrive, that we all adopt, like you wake up, you go to school, you have you get a university degree, you get a 9 to 5, you get married, all these things, but it doesn't have to be in that order. And the problem is that most of us buy into that narrative, and then we believe that there's something wrong with us when we don't follow that narrative. Whereas like a lot of these narratives are brand new. Like I was telling one of my friends, I was like, you know what? I know I'm a money coach, but if you don't have retirement savings, the concept of retirement and savings for retirement is brand new. It's like 1920s, 1930s, and actually really took off in the 1940s. So even all our investment schemes, all this is brand new. So if you're taking time to catch up to that, it's new to humanity, So a lot of these models are also not endemic to who we are as humans, but we've started to take them on, and we're like, this is who we are. No, not all of us are geared for that, and it's okay if you're completely not able to fit into any of this, and you are not doing things the way that you're expected to do them. A baby by 30, a husband by 30, all these things. It's brand new.
Absolutely. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. It can be very oppressive to feel like you have to fit, and it limits our freedom. It keeps us constrained to say, I think there's a lot of people who in their hearts maybe feel, I don't know if I'm ready to be a mom or get married. I don't know. But we see that there's so much pressure, the people around us, our friends, and we're like, well, I don't want to look different, because there's not a lot of embrace about being different in our world. We've come a long way, right? But in general, people still don't really want to stand out, because those who stand out get pointed out. And they say, what's wrong with you? You're in your late 30s and you're just traveling the world and you're not settled down. And it's like, and I'm learning to be embraced. And I also love my life. And if you love your life, then who cares? Well, like what it looks, as long as you're not harming anyone else, your thing and whatever makes you thrive. And if I do know people who all they wanted was a family. And so they're super happy having a family. And that's just like you said, there's nomadic tribes. And then there's the ones that set up shop and they stay put. There's, different lifestyles for every different people. And I hope that we continue to be more embracing of different ways of living and experiencing life for whatever works best for you.
Yep, like definitely. And for me, that's one of the things that I had to accept. And also, one of the things I say to people is I don't think I would have been an entrepreneur or even been able to grow my business if I wasn't traveling. The reason I say that is, so this is going to sound bizarre, right? But like every single time I have asked to grow my business, I've been sent to a different country. And it's not for healing or for things that I think that I will get. I also don't understand it. For example, when I decided to do my business full time, to go from part-time to full-time in 2017, the guidance I got was to move to Chiang Mai, Thailand. And I was like, what the hell? But I can tell you, if I hadn't moved to Chiang Mai, I wouldn't have been able to scale my income and go beyond $2,500 a month in my business and build a six-figure business. And the reason for that was that in Chiang Mai, I met certain people who became part of my network who completely started to expand my way of thinking, who started to remind me about the value of coaching and hiring coaches, who started to really get me to think differently. I went to activities that were like, wow, where I would meet random people. And one or two conversations would leave me just like going like, what did I just hear? And they completely opened up my world. Like I met so many people that I would just be having random conversations, but those conversations would spark something in me and would just completely open me up.
Yeah.
And literally after asking for that guidance from the universe, like 8 months later, my income had gone from like $2,500 a month to like $8,000 a month. I just like created this jump from moving to Chiang Mai, which didn't make sense at the time, So like all these things, I feel like you're working with intuition as well. And what would work for one person would not necessarily work for me, because all the stuff that I was doing in the business world and doing all of it wasn't working for me in that regard. But just like this one move to a different country shifted me so much, it just like cracked open so much within me. And here we are.
And here we are. Well, can you tell us more about your work? Because I think again, that goes along with the concept of trusting your guidance and being open to alternative ways of, getting business counseling, which isn't always based on like working with a coach. Sometimes it's just getting to a new environment with new energies that might open up a new door for you. Right. And I think it sounds like being open, that has really benefited you. But I want to talk about your work that you do that affords you to travel the world and be, a money and business coach. And because it's so important, because talk about trusting, and trusting and kind of letting go when it comes to money. That is such a tricky issue in our world, because money is essentially, make believe, right? It's this concept, it's an energetic thing that we've made up, that this is what value is. This is how you have, abundance or means. This is when you don't, this is how you earn money. This is how you lose. It basically governs our world in a large degree, which is unfortunate, because then we become slaves to money, but also there's so much fear around money and finances. And I know again, I'd love for you to talk more about your work. I know that has a lot to do with it. Is money trauma is a base of your work, where people have, because when you are without means and in financial straits, it is scary. It's hard. It's overwhelming. It's anxiety inducing. So yeah, I'd love to hear about, how did you get into this line of work? And then how do you help others with their money traumas, money fear, and money insecurities?
So I got into this. So I help mainly women of color, but I work with women from all walks of life really heal ancestral money trauma. So obviously, because of my travels and everything, my clients are from all over the world, and it's just been amazing.
Yeah.
So how I got into this line of work is I actually have a finance degree from the University of Cape Town, and I went to do, so I also have an honors degree, and then I went to do my master's, my MBA at the Simmons School of Management in Boston, Massachusetts. So the idea was I was already traveling, but I'd raked up debt from my travels as I was traveling. So that's why I went to do the MBA, because in my head, it was like, I'll have an MBA, everyone's gonna hire me, I'm gonna be like so marketable, and I'm gonna make more money than I've ever made, and my finances are gonna be on point, and then I'm gonna go so this was my plan, literally. I'm gonna go into private equity or investment banking, and then I'll take 2-week vacations. I'll move to the US, and I'm willing to work because I was studying in the US, right? So I was like, I'm going to work like 16-hour days. I romanticize this, by the way. I was like, I want to be in investment banking so I can work 12 to 16-hour days, make lots of money, and then I'm going to retire by 40 because I won't have time to spend my money. But it'll be great because I'll be making all this money.
Yeah.
That was me. So then as
And how long ago was that?
This was in 2008.
Okay.
So
So
I was like right before, like, so this was right before my 25th birthday.
okay.
Actually, when did I apply for the MBA? I was like 23. So I was like, yes. So I'm like, I'm going to do this. You know? So I signed up for this program, and I'm laughing now because it's like, wow. So I keep going, but like in my spirit, something, I mean, I'm a traveler. I've been traveling for about 4 years up until now, right? But something in my spirit is like, no, man, this is not okay. You know, that I'm like, this is the plan. This is the only way that I'm going to make money, and I'm sticking to the plan. I am not deviating from this plan at all. So I continue. And lo and behold, I graduate from this MBA program with really great grades, like straight A's, everything. And I'm completely freaking out. You know, I'm like having a full on moment of like, I'm scared, but I don't want to acknowledge it. It doesn't feel right in my spirit. So I launch a business where I'll be helping spoken word poets do stuff, but I'm also applying for jobs as in investment banking. And then something really weird starts to happen. I start getting panic attacks every time I handle money. Every time I have to talk about money, every time I have to deal with money. I keep pushing through these panic attacks. I have panic attacks. A year later, the panic attacks escalate. I go to a bank. I'm going to a Bank of America ATM, and I'm wanting to withdraw money, and I literally can't get to the ATM. I end up like sitting on the side of the road on the sidewalk and having a full-blown panic attack. And I'm just like, okay, this can't last. But as with all things, it takes a while. So it progresses. My panic attacks progress to the point where it becomes depression, and I can no longer get out of bed. And all this is somehow linked to money, everything. Like I'm trying to apply for jobs. Now, this actually means I can no longer go to job interviews. You know, my entire plan that I had is like, now that has to fall by the wayside because my mental health takes precedence, because then I start being suicidal. It's just going downhill from there. And all this is triggered by money. This is what is so weird. Like, if I just handle money, talk about money, do anything with money, invoice people, it's like my whole day goes to pot. Like it's just a whirlwind. And now you have to handle money every day to go buy things, to do anything. Eventually, I start learning about positive affirmations, it gets worse actually. As I try to do positive thinking, try to pretend that this isn't happening. I feel good. I'm working on myself with the positivity. It's not helping me. It's getting more and more intense until a friend of mine says something really interesting. So two friends. One friend tells me about Vipassana meditation. So I instantly sign up because what are my options, Another friend asks me, he goes, Van, you're from a family of shamans. What if this is not just your depression? It's ancestral depression. Now, something to understand is like I grew up around shamans and spirituality and all this work. When I got to university, I rejected everything. I rejected the herbs. I rejected oh, you grew up on like eating food that was not processed. That's how I grew up, unprocessed foods, eating straight from the ground. I never drank caffeine growing up. We weren't allowed to, never had like Coca-Cola. We'd have like one glass once in a while, or like soda. Everything was like straight from the ground, homemade, really good food. Like even now, people are always shocked when I make my vegan food and they're like, your food is so good. I'm like, yeah, I grew up on this. Like I grew up watching how this food was made tasty and so good. But I'm saying this to say, I didn't go that route to start off with, was I grew up with it and I rebelled against it. I hated that, like I was this child growing up, because spirituality back then wasn't this. When I was a child, it wasn't this awesome thing. I was teased a lot. Oh, what? You're not allowed to drink soda. Oh, wow. And then shamed about that. Because like, why are you drinking water? Why are you eating fruit? Why does your mom not give you lunch full of like junk? Why do you have like a whole pack of fruit and salads and things to go to school? So when my friend said that, it kind of sparked this whole like, oh God, what? So when I went to Vipassana, I started to notice that there was a link between my body and my emotions. And every time that my mind, for 10 days, even though I wasn't managing money, everything was about money for me. And it was causing so much angst and anxiety in my body, even though I didn't have to deal with money. So when I got out of Vipassana, this is how I started the work. I went back to my roots, what I had been taught growing up, what I'd learned about ancestors. But then I started looking into research. I started merging it with my work, what I'd learned at school around money. And I was like, okay, erase everything that I've learned. Let me look into behavioral finance. And I started looking into the psychology of money. And I started doing research on that, which is how I wrote my first book, Heart, Mind, and Money, Using Emotional Intelligence for Financial Success. I researched, like if you read that book, I cite a lot of theses and academic studies that have been done around emotions and money. And then I started going into trauma work, and I started looking and talking to my mother. My sister's a shaman as well. Started talking to people around me and just saying, what is it that I've learned in my own culture around ancestral trauma and how trauma passes down from bloodline, from one generation to the next? Mm-hmm. And then what are the stuff that we do to heal it? And then what is it that's coming through from the guidance? And I started communicating with my ancestors, because people are always like, how do you know this stuff? Where did you learn it? Who guided you to create these meditations? I literally went back to talking to my ancestors, to my guides, and asking them to help me heal. Because also my mother from a very young age had told us about all this work around ancestral healing. And she had said, if you ever have any problems, we come from a family of really powerful healers. And your great grand aunts were some of the most powerful womb healers of their time, and they were doing cesareans before the West did cesareans. So you can go and you can ask them, you can kneel down, talk to them, and ask them to bring forth that knowledge, that it be awakened within you. So this is how I came to do this work, really and truly.
Wow, that's remarkable. That's incredible. And so it is so important because, as we've talked about, money it can be a wonderful thing because it can just be a means to living the life that you desire. But when there is this because I mean, money comes down to any insecurities, right? A lack of belief in sufficiency, a lack mindset. And that can really kind of be insidious, just like, personal insecurity. Like when you just don't think you're worthy enough or good enough. With money, it can be like, because again, it's energetic. So when we have this belief that money won't come to me, we push it away. We're not going to, but just as you've said in your personal experience, you've had times where money comes, money goes. And I know that's something else you talk about in your book and in your work, is that trusting that ebb and flow, that again, money is energy, so that we trust. I mean, I know I've had times in my life where I had very upsetting financial disturbances, where something happened and all of a sudden I was like, I'm really going to spend this much money on this, crazy thing that happened. And it can be hard, kind of like we were talking about attachment. It's like, no, but I wanted that money. I didn't want to spend that money on getting a dental implant, which is so expensive. Stuff like that. And, you try to hold on to it, but you got to let go, because what I found is that it truly does. If I just trust, something else will come in. And then I don't know, I've kind of almost found that it's almost just like a natural cycle of things, where it just seems like sometimes money is meant to leave you. And then sometimes money is, and whether it's in the form of, again, dental work or like a trip you expect, just not trying to fight it. I think also something we struggle with so much is fighting everything that happens to us. Whether it's a relationship that doesn't work out, a job that doesn't work out, a home that doesn't work out. And we spend so much time thinking, why did this happen? Like, okay, thank you for this gift, because just as we're guided to do this work and to go to Costa Rica, we are all guided to each point and experience of our lives. But when we fight it, saying, I don't want this. This isn't how I thought it should look. This is not ideal. Then we're sort of doing a disservice to this lesson that we're meant to be experiencing, whether it's money related or personally related.
Exactly. I don't know if you guys can hear, the rain in the background now.
But so my last guest, when we were recording, when she's in Costa Rica, this giant rumble of thunder came through during our interview. It was so, oh my God.
I literally sit on the porch and I just watch the rain. And I keep thinking to myself, if I'd never taken the leap to travel, we don't have, like, in everyday lives, like when I talk to my friends, they're like, what you doing? I'm like, nothing. I'm just like watching the rain on the porch. Like there's nothing much to do, just watching the rain.
Just being an immense beauty and vibrant, luscious jungle life. That's all.
Right. Yeah, but I wanted to say I agree with you with what you're saying about money scarcity and all that. And actually, I'm going through a moment right now where I've had to spend the money I wasn't planning on lawyers and legal stuff and all sorts of things. And it's been like a whole process of just trusting, and just being like, this is for my business. I'm trusting that I'm doing the right thing. And it's been hard. So as you're talking about that, like one of the things that as people, I've literally gotten on phone calls with my clients in my mastermind, and they're like, how are you? I'm like, it's been hard. I'm in Costa Rica. I love it, but I'm being called to trust in my own work right now. So I have a body of work called the Spirit of Money Meditations, where like you connect with the spirit of money, and I work with that. And I've just like been doing this work myself, and I'm just like having to trust my own work. And I also have a journal, so part 1 and part 2, which is like a whole year journal called the Next Level You Woman Money Journal. And I'm like working on that and working on connecting with my womb around money and all that. And just that level of trust to be like, I'm being called to also, at the same time as all this is happening, to elevate and invest in other areas of my business, and to trust that I should do that and I should move on and continue to do that.
Yes.
I don't want to minimize how much faith that takes, and how much self-trust that takes, and how much trusting of money that takes, and also having to feel into that. Like, I've been talking a lot about like feeling my anger towards money in this time period of my life, because I had other ideas of what I wanted to do with this money. And it feels in my head like it's a delay now, that a real estate project that I'm working on is being delayed. But I know it's not intellectually, but there's still that element that I now need to work on that myself, on my own stuff. So
Yes.
yeah, I'm loving this conversation.
Me too, because I think, and I'm glad we're having it, because I think it's important for everyone to hear, because again, whether it's money or a relationship or a job you wanted or personal, like getting past something maybe that trauma that you've struggled to get over. I know for me, there's been traumas in my life that I was like, when am I going to get over this? Like, when am I going to actually heal this? You do a lot of different healing work, but all these things, the connecting thread is that it's patience with the process and trust in the process. Because just as you said, there's when, caveats come into whether it's a business plan or a personal pursuit, and you're like, these are expenses I didn't expect. And how am I supposed to put this? And also, if it feels like something like, really, like I have to pay this much money for that. Like, and again, the attachment is hard to let go and just say, okay, this is the path of my business. I mean, the story of most millionaires or people who are very successful financially, not that that's necessary to be successful, but just the story of people who gain a lot of money is they are gigantic pitfalls that lead to huge uprisings. Almost always the case. It's rarely that someone just gradually continues up towards a huge, fortune. They have to trust that, okay, sometimes I lose money to get a bigger win later on. Right. And the same thing with when you're healing your trauma. Sometimes I have to go to the depth of my soul, to the most painful parts, to be freer than I could have ever thought.
And that's exactly what's been happening. Because I feel like why I say I feel like I've been led here is because like my biggest trauma around rejection was triggered in September. And I just like experienced this massive trauma of rejection, which is a trauma that I carry from childhood. As a child, I was I was abused. I come from an abusive household, but I was also bullied throughout kindergarten, primary school, high school. I was just a child that was constantly bullied, So that trauma of rejection and experiencing bullying again, I just like had a whole moment in September around that. And it just completely floored me, and it triggered me. And every part of me has wanted to go into hiding and to run. So why I say like I feel like I've been supported in Costa Rica is I've also been living in a jungle. So I've had that, So I've like been far from the madding crowd. It's felt like I've been cocooned, but I haven't felt like I'm in hiding, because I'm still showing up for my work. I'm still doing the work. I'm still showing up for client work. But it's also just been a moment in my life where it's also then triggered the same wounds, and it's made me, and I talk a lot about this, like how sometimes when we're triggered, we can, our sub-personalities can use money as a tool to protect us. So you start blocking money energetically, or getting rid of money energetically, or like goals you didn't know existed literally have been coming out of the blue for me. I'm like, what's happening? Like, where's this bull been? Like, people are like, oh, we forgot to send you this bill. We forgot to send you this. Oh, wow, really? All at once. And a huge part of that is also that our sub-personalities, the parts of us that feel unsafe, and the parts of me, I'll speak for what I know has been happening with me, is that the parts, my inner teen and my inner child, that are scared of being visible, and that the money, like making more money, expanding, having resources makes me more visible, because it doesn't stop me. Like right now, one of the projects that I was meant to start on is a 10-unit apartment building, that I'm building a 10-unit apartment building back in South Africa. So that now would make me even more visible, create an extra stream of income, passive income, all sorts of things, right? So those parts of me that have now been triggered by this rejection, and the rejection ironically also comes from how much money I've been making in my business, or the perceived money that I've been making in my business. So now those parts of me are like, oh my gosh, if I make more money, and I start to up level beyond this, I'm going to be even more rejected. I'm going to be rejected even more and on a larger scale. And it's so scary. So what do those parts do? They shut down. They try to protect me by making sure that like money is blocked, or creating emergencies, or bringing up legal fees, legal bills, all these things.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. So much right there. Really, like that's a lot, but okay, first of all, I want to really thank you for bringing up and speaking to your experience, growing up in an abusive home and also being bullied, because, I had that same experience through, middle school, high school, and I'm a therapist now, and I work with teens and kids, and I will speak often, and even to adults who experience it, is that I think that bullying is very underrated in terms of the impact it has on us, because when we're children, we don't know how to have a self-concept aside from whether we're accepted by our peers, our family, and what people say to us. We're learning who we are. We don't have a strong sense of self. So when people reject us and bully us, it fundamentally, shifts our belief about ourselves. Oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm not worthy. People don't like me. And that sits with you. And that's a heavy feeling to have. And
it is, hey, it's so heavy. And like, sorry to interrupt, but I think one of the things that I want to talk about is that like a lot of people will see me, like I do so many magazine interviews, I do a lot of radio and TV interviews, especially in South Africa. And people have this concept that like, oh, you must be so secure and so self-confident. I'm like, no, because every so often I'll hit my limit and something will become bigger than I planned. And it will remind me that like, people have the power to reject you, and someone will respond in some type of way. Someone close to me will respond in, like one of my friends told me, oh, it's the van show now. As you expand, it's the van show everywhere you go because of all this publicity. And she then stopped being friends with me, and it was one of my closest friends, right? That triggered all of that bullying all over again, that fear of like, you will be rejected, you'll end up alone, and you'll once more be the child who's eating lunch alone when everyone else has some kind of clique, because I never had that growing up, So I still have those deep, deep fears, and they come up once in a while, even in my romantic relationships. I'll be like, oh, I'm scared that like this will happen all over again.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because anything that happens to us in those fundamental years stays with us. Right. And I believe that we do heal it in a lot of ways, but there's some things that we'll just always feel a little sad about and a little bit insecure about. And I think that's just life, is that there's some things that, it's just sort of a part of who we are, and we learn how to work with it. But another thing I will say, Vangile, is that, I personally believe, because I'm learning this too, is that you said that you were, you had that rejection thing come up with this, okay, well, I'm getting more, visibility, but with that comes more rejection. I have fear around this. It's triggering old things. But I believe when things come into our life that hit a nerve, it's because it's giving us another opportunity to heal that nerve. Because to me, what it's saying, Vangile, is that you are going to keep growing and you are going to gain more visibility because you're needed. You have wisdom, you have inspiration to offer others. You're a powerful, wise woman who's here to offer her gifts. But, if you get as big as you can get, then it's important to shed as much of that fear of rejection that you can. So to me, every opportunity, because I've been there too recently, where I feel like I just get the wind knocked out of me. Something happens and it's like a gut punch, and it's like, why did this have to happen? I thought I was done with this. Why did I have to get all these emotions stirred back up? But to me, again, it's the world saying, hey, this is going to happen if you gain more visibility, if you grow yourself to what you say, because we're setting our intention to the universe, right? When we say, I want to grow my business, I want to speak this to the world, I want to be an inspiration to women of color who want to heal their own wounds, then the universe is going to say, okay, well, then we're going to keep helping you be safe with and be comfortable with
Yes,
your wounds, right?
yes, I agree because I feel like one of the things that I've been working on is really this fear of rejection.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I realized is that I've been walking, that there's still a part of me, and I realized this about a week ago in like a breath work meditation, that there's still a part of me that's been walking around rejecting myself, and that I've been projecting that fear of rejection onto the world. You
Yes.
know, that little girl who's still in middle school, who is still in high school, still doesn't believe that she gets to be part of the community, that she has been the one to build the tribe that she's built, all that, and she's still in disbelief and is still walking around with that wound of rejection. And I've been waiting. It's almost like I've been waiting for the rejection to happen. And because she's been waiting for the rejection to happen. So now the work that I've had to do was to work with her and to be like, it's okay. You
Yeah.
can let it go. You can lay that down. It's okay. And it's also okay that I've been walking around projecting the self-rejection onto others, because I think part of me has been super, super scared to own my power. And that's another thing. Like I've been feeling that a lot in my womb. So I've been doing a lot of womb work, this
Mm.
fear of owning my power. And this one is very ancestral, which is like the fear that like as a woman who owns her power, then how do you like, am I still gonna have the same relationships with women in my circles? Will I be seen as too much? This is the thing that keeps coming up for me, like you'll be too much, you're going to be too much, especially because one of the things that I was told in September was learn to be humble. You need to learn to humble yourself. And by that, I knew how it was being said to me wasn't that learn to be humble in terms of like, you know, it was like learn to make yourself smaller kind of thing, you know, don't be so
Yeah.
out there, don't be too much. The context in which it was said wasn't like, you know, and I think sometimes women are called to be humble, to have humility, as in like learn a little bit how to contract yourself. So I felt like you're just too much, you know.
Yes.
So that's one of the things that I've been dealing with, and this thing of like allowing myself to be too much, giving myself power to be too much, to have my voice and just show up and
Yes.
be too much. And it's been, I don't want to minimize it, it's been scary because it's a very thing that has been said to me that like caused so much friction in my life, especially in September, was you're not humble enough, you're too much, you know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, good for you for really sitting with that and exploring it and saying, you know what? I need to think about what I think, not what other people are telling me. And sometimes it's a mix
Yeah,
of both, right? Like
yeah,
there's always a place for humbleness, right? But there's
there's
always a
always
place
a place
to
for
say, okay,
humbleness.
like let me
Yeah,
take consideration for this. But there's also time and place to say, you know what? I want to be, it's okay to be big and to be, you know,
mm,
take up a lot of space and to be seen and to not feel
mm,
like I have to shrink myself down. It's a balancing thing. Because we also, you know, I think for me, humbleness comes in when it says it's not all about me and like that I'm going to do this. It's about the work itself and what I'm bringing
yeah,
through, what I'm channeling
yes,
through my abilities. But that doesn't mean that we aren't, you know, there to shine too and get to have that sense of, wow, I'm not rejected. I'm actually being embraced because I've been
yeah,
bold and brave to take on this work and bring it into the world. And I deserve to be seen for that. And you deserve to be seen for that. So thank you so
yeah,
much for speaking to that, Vangile. And
yeah.
I really want to say like, thank you for doing what you do and for speaking out and being such a
Thank
voice of
you.
empowerment and but also, you know, non-conventionality and saying like, hey, live the life that you want. It's possible. Trust yourself more and you can find greater peace and healing.
Yes, thank you. I think the journey, it's a constant journey, but I love it. And I think this is the beauty of why we do the work that we do, right? So that we can heal and we can give ourselves permission to live this life, you
Yes.
know, an unconventional life. And as we do that, it also gives others permission by default because they know that, like, oh, it's fine. It's
Yeah,
not a big deal.
exactly. We give
And
each other permission, and
yeah,
and then that opens us up to embracing who we are and having these and reaching our highest potential, not keeping
yeah,
ourselves small, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I definitely feel that. Like, I'm so grateful to do this work. I'm so grateful with me that you get to do this work and that you have this podcast and people are learning also how to do the work for themselves and how to pull themselves through these experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation, Vangile. I'm so grateful to have met you. I hope to collaborate. Maybe we'll even run into each other in future travels.
Yes,
I'm sure with all our bouncing around, one day we're going to end up in the same spot in this world. I think so.
definitely. Please, let's definitely keep in touch.
Yes,
I'm so
absolutely.
grateful.
And
Thank
Vanilla,
you
if people want to
for
work with
having me
you,
here.
if people want to work with you and find out more about you, how can they find you?
Oh, yeah. So I do have a free 7-day tapping into ancestral money wisdom training. People can check it out at wealthy-money.com/training. Again, wealthy-money.com/training. And you will receive an email. You'll be able to sign up to the program on there, to the training on there. Shoot me an email and just let me know that you want to work with me. Also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook under Vangile Makwakwa. So my first and last name, which will be on the podcast. Just find me on there. And yeah, hit me up. I would really, really love to hear what you guys thought. And I respond to inboxes all the time. I'm always just happy to have conversations.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you again so much. Lovely to have you on the show. I'm sure we'll talk soon. Enjoy Costa Rica while you're there.
Thank you so much, Whitney. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you.